We have a lot to get through today, but we will start in a very short amount of time. I'm just checking something. Okay. So welcome to our September Transit Riders Council meeting, everybody. As you can imagine, since I'm sure you've all seen the news, from yesterday's MTA board meeting, there's an awful lot going on, and there's some things that we wish were going on that aren't going on, such as federal funding. As of this point, the chairman has made it very clear, as I have, that this is not a red or blue state issue, it's a jobs issue. The MTA provides employment and tax revenue to many states other than New York. 350,000 jobs, $100 billion in economic activity in 2021 is expected, and that's outside New York City. We're talking hundreds of thousands of jobs in other states, thanks to the many suppliers, rolling stock, buses, signals, IT, you name it. So obviously it is not just a New York issue. And MTA spends $50 billion in infrastructure investments, which of course is great for the building industry, workers, and you could go on and on. This should not be, this is a no-brainer, but apparently the Senate is not moving yet. The House is hanging tough. We will see how this plays out. There's all kinds of new issues now. It was fairly clear that this may and likely will not be decided prior to election day. Ridership is still growing, but substantially down from where it was last year. I've been riding quite a bit lately, and I do see ridership up. I see mask usage up, and I still see maybe 1% of people not wearing the masks correctly. Subway ridership is approximately down 71%, even though it is growing. There are a lot of budget categories being looked at the MTA in terms of trying to save money all over the place. There are reductions, significant reductions in overtime now, and there are fewer consultants being hired. I believe that is Trudy, who just joined us.
Yes, that's all I wanted to tell you, and I'm going to remute myself now, but I'll have something to say.
We recognize your phone, Trudy.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Another good piece of news is there are very low numbers of new COVID cases among MTA employees, which is good news, which means they can continue to provide the essential service and services they are providing. During his report, Bob Ferran, the chief financial officer, mentioned that Moody's has downgraded our transportation revenue bond status from A2 to A3. We are still getting good responses. It just makes it a little bit more costly to borrow. The bonds are selling well, but we don't want to bond ourselves out of existence. And here's Bill, wonderful. Hi, Bill. We are at the point of $3.8 billion below what was budgeted for us. We are 843,000 positive right now. We are fluid, as Bob likes to say, but maybe through January or something like that, which is why board member Larry Schwartz, who is aware of likely getting no response from the feds or anybody prior to the board having to take a vote. The vote was going to happen in November board meeting. He has suggested asking Bob to move forward on borrowing from the municipal liquidity facility from which we have borrowed before, which is basically for cities, but the MTA has borrowed from them before. Their rates are very favorable, and he's suggesting we borrow another 2.8 billion from them. I think the interest rate is in the 1 point something range, 1.8 maybe, and it's low interest, and it would get us through when we likely will hear something. I think it would, Larry's suggestion was that would get us through January.
Andrew, can I just add that
sure.
Paul Burton, who has joined us here,
Yes.
wrote a great piece on that, specifically that's in Bonfire today, and talks also about the podcast that he interviewed us for.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Paul. Well, obviously, we were, I think, at something like 21% debt service. I remember Freddie Ferrer, when he was chair, was reminding us you don't want to go over 20. These are desperate times, obviously, and we don't want to cut service. That should be the very last thing that we look at. And we certainly don't want to lay off 8,700 employees, which is one of the options that is being looked at. The capital program remains on hold, but 5 new ADA stations have been added, which is great news. The city's new, one of the city's new board members, Victor Calise, who is in a wheelchair, was mentioning yesterday at the board meeting how he would love to see a lot more, and everybody agreed they would all like to see a lot more, but we have to find out what our financial status is before we can go forward on a lot of other things. In the subject of transformation, Anthony McCord mentioned that due to planned retirements and attrition, the 2,700 employee reduction that Alex Partners referenced will have been accomplished without layoffs. Of course, that doesn't mean if we don't get federal funding, there wouldn't be massive layoffs. There would be. But in terms of the Alex Partners recommendation of 2,700, that will take place without layoffs. So that is a little piece of good news. Also, the budget, communications, diversity, legal, labor relations, and procurement sections of all of the various operating agencies have been combined, which is more efficient and which is going to save 155 million over 5 years. So that is another piece of good news that is going forward. I'm sure you have all heard that that yesterday the MTA board adopted what had already been put into effect, but now it's codified, new rules of conduct. There is a length of time limit that you can remain in a subway station, a commuter rail station. You can't urinate, defecate, rolling wagons, conveyances of over a certain size are banned in the system. Many folks said this is an attack on the homeless. The homeless should not be living in the system for their own good and for everyone else's good. But there have been lots of issues with heavy rolling carts. There have been people carting things and using elevators which weren't meant for those kinds of weights, escalators that weren't meant for those kinds of weights, and rolling heavy conveyances through the system, and that is now banned. Continuing on the report from yesterday, Metro North President Rinaldi reminded us that the Upper Harlem line was the hardest hit of all of Metro North from Tropical Storm Isaias. It is still being repaired in places. Many trees came down. As I'm sure Sharon knows, it affected service to Wassaic in a meaningful way. They are trying really hard to get it back. Another really wonderful piece of Metro North news is that for the first time in a very long time, their train time app has been updated, and it is like night and day from the old one. This one is so much more user-friendly. It gives you time at intermediate stations. It gives you a map showing your train in real time. The only thing it's missing now, and Kathy mentioned that it is coming hopefully within a month, is the thing that the Long Island Railroad train time has, which tells you the crowding loads of each of the various carriages. So look for that to come soon to Metro North's train time. in terms of the R179 fleet, which has been sidelined for a host of reasons, they are being tested now in small groups in non-revenue service. If those tests, and there has been a panel that was looking at all of the issues, car doors opening, cars becoming detached, inner wall issues, a whole host of things with the R179s. They are being tested, as I just said, in non-revenue service. They will be put into revenue service in limited amounts on the A, C, F, and Z. And hopefully they will, all the kinks will have been worked out, and software upgrades, and they can once again, there are 313 of them, and they will help to finally retire the last of the really old cars in the fleet. So we look forward to.
Andrew, pardon
Yes.
the interruption. I have been seeing on Facebook reports of the R179 on revenue service on the J and Z.
You have seen them in service already?
Yes.
That could be
As of
part of
yesterday.
the limited revenue service that they're in.
So that means that we will see the R179s again on the A, C, and J.
Yes, A, C, J, and Z.
And what's going to happen with the R160s that are right now on the A?
There's
They're going
plenty
to
of
return
places.
to Jamaica?
There's plenty of lines they can run on, Jason. I don't think that's an issue. But you know, we certainly don't want the R32s back in any way, because they have the lowest MDBF of any of the fleet. So I would be happy to see them go.
Of course, it's way over. The R32s are way overdue to retirement.
Way overdue. Yes.
Andrew, Christopher has his hand up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm going to back Jason up, but the only thing is it was also on YouTube page that they show the Z train entering Chamber Street as well on that. So I will back up Jason on that one.
They're showing a what train entering Chambers?
The R179 entering with passengers on it. It was on a Z train.
Oh, on a Z. Oh, yeah. So they are on limited revenue service then. They said they would be doing that.
They've also been testing them also on the Brighton line, because I have seen them on the B when they come in, and they do announce, they said, ladies and gentlemen, this train coming in is not in customer service. This is a test train. Please ignore.
Right. Yeah, I knew they're not in revenue service on the Brighton for sure.
And one thing, I'm glad some of our B division is clean, because the A division, I sent you the picture about the number 1 train. I'm
finding that unbelievable, considering how frequently the trains are washed, Christopher. I don't get that.
Inside, it's washed. But if you go to South Ferry and you see 1 or 2 of them in the back of them, it looks like I see a little bit of, it doesn't look silver anymore. It looks like the Dark Knight. It looks very black, dirty.
You didn't happen to get the car numbers of that train, did you?
It was actually, well, before I did it, it wasn't just one set. It's like I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 trains. So it was hard.
All right, I'll speak to Frank Giesecke about that.
That's something that's been raised in New Jersey by Len Restow on a number of different webinars too. Is that the inside could be as clean as possible, but if the outside doesn't look clean, people aren't going to think the inside is clean.
And just to back up the B division, and I just want to say the 7 train, I have to put my sunglasses on because I get blindsided from that shininess on the 7, on the newer trains, even on the 68 cars and the 32s. How can they stay clean? But the other ones, like the 1 train, it's the only train I've seen is dirty. The 3 looks clean, but that's the only one I'm seeing. Only 1 train, your train.
We'll find out. Thanks. Also wanted to report, which I'm sure you've all seen on the news, about Riken Wilder, who was a real hero. Riken removed debris from 14th Street and 8th Avenue. Unfortunately, somebody who needs help badly, and who is now arrested, thank goodness, put more debris back, and an A train derailed the other day. It could have been a lot worse had all of this debris been on the tracks. Apparently this debris was in a place that transit employees have access to, but the public is not supposed to. I said at the board that it's too bad we don't have the IESS track, warning system, intrusion system, where if somebody is unauthorized and goes down there, an alarm would go off, because that might have prevented this problem. But Mr. Wilder, apprehended, ran after the perp, tackled him, held him for 15 minutes until the police arrived. He was honored, yes, and sprained his arm in the process. He was honored yesterday by the chairman and given a year's free Metro card rides, as well as a giant Metro card with his name and a Subway Hero t-shirt. And we are really fortunate to have somebody with the quick thinking and moral attitude of Mr. Wilder, who did not want to see the train derailed, people injured, and did the right thing. He endangered himself, and maybe that wasn't the smartest thing, but it turned out well, and we wish him the best. And we really hope this sends a message that debris has to be locked away. If it's a track project, it's got to be out of the view of anybody, and we really need to move forward with a tunnel and track intrusion system, because while this person wasn't a terrorist, this could have been considered a terrorist action to derail a train, and God forbid he had a bomb or something. We have to make the tunnels and the tracks free of people like this. So hats off to Mr. Wilder. You certainly earned your reward, and I hope to see you in the system again sometime soon. Now on to something a little more poignant. It is with great sadness that I report to you that our delightful Associate Director, Ellen Shannon, will be leaving us probably in mid-October. Ellen is taking advantage of an opportunity to retire. Ellen has been with us 18 years plus. She has been just a wonderful person to deal with, to work with. She has many projects under her belt. It was Ellen who noticed the ridiculous amount of dwell time on the 42nd Street shuttle. Even with people teeming in the cars, the trains didn't leave. They waited for a specific schedule. She spoke to operations planning about it. By the way, these delays caused people to miss their connections, whether your connection was at Grand Central or Penn Station. Obviously, people were using the shuttle to get between east and west sides for their commutes. So she worked with ops planning, and now it was changed to a load and go system. She worked with Judy McLean to achieve that. Not sure if that's the case right now, because construction persists on the shuttle, and there's still some work that has to go on. So it may be on a strict schedule rather than a load and go right now. But when you have the big island platform and the connections at 6th Avenue are all finished, hopefully the shuttle will go frequently and not wait to be overloaded before it leaves. So we certainly want to thank Ellen for working on that. She also worked on the project MTA in the age of big data. Without clean data, it's really hard to make the right decisions for riders. Ellen understood this, delved into this with great enthusiasm, and it's quite a difficult topic, but she took it on. And getting to understand the data that the MTA produces is really a win for all stakeholders. And these kinds of projects are one of the reasons that the PCAC was created, to get into these kinds of things and advocate for riders in a way that nobody else does. As you know, we created Freedom Ticket, we brought it to the MTA, we sold it to them on proof of concept, and it's worked. It is in action right now, masquerading as Atlantic Ticket, but we certainly hope it will be Freedom Ticket and will be on all of the lines in all of the boroughs at some point. Ellen worked to craft projects to make them easier to implement. She will definitely really be sorely missed. She's been an important part of the PCAC for over 18 years. I think I can speak for everybody when I say we really wish you well in your retirement. You must come back and visit us. Don't be a stranger. And I believe Trudy would like to say a few words as well.
Trudy, yeah, I had to unmute myself. Now, can you hear me?
We
Yeah.
can.
I just wanted to add to what you said. I guess, Andrew, aside from you, I'm the person who has worked, or along with you, who has worked with Ellen the longest. And I just want to say, first of all, that she has put up with me and my nudging and everything is a big gold star for her right away. But Ellen has not only done all the projects that you said, and I can put another list of projects that she has done, and organizing so many other projects and things like the dashboard, which was her idea. She's come up with so many ideas, but she has also done a lot of work outside of the MTA, outside of the PCAC, in terms of various civic and nonprofit organizations, and especially in the educational field, and working with her daughter, her family. She has just been absolutely phenomenal and a joy to work with. So, Ellen, well, you'll be missed, but I for one, will still be calling on you for various things. So I hope you don't mind. But really, everybody, it is some losses you just can't replace, and Ellen is going to be one of them. But you are doing the right thing, and I just wish you safe passage in your new life. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy. Lisa, you wanted to say something, I believe?
I do, thanks. Ellen, I want to thank you for everything you've done, not just in the time that I've been here, but you were really the face of PCAC for the years I was at NYCTRC and beyond that. You know, you really your passion for riders and for making the case to make change at the MTA was really clear, and the work that you've done will help to guide the agency into the future. It will help to ensure that we have a path forward as well. We would like you to leave your institutional brain so that we can rate you for knowledge and everything that you have gathered in your years with us. But thank you so much. As Trudy said, you'll be impossible to replace.
If she leaves her brain, isn't that going to be a little messy?
Well, we have, planters. Nobody's using a refrigerator in the office.
Okay. Yeah. Would anyone else like to say anything for our
Christopher
treasurer?
has his hand. Christopher and Matt Shotkin both have their hands raised.
And I would like to say something at some point as well, please.
Oh, sure.
Go first. Let Bradley.
No, you go first, Chris. Go ahead.
First of all, since this is my 10th year being on the Transit Riders Council, and actually, this is the day I started the Transit Riders Council meeting.
No kidding.
Yeah, and their stories. I'm going to just focus on Ellie. Ellie was, when we always have a good discussion. We always had some ideas, and we all worked as a team. And I have to say, it was an honor to work with her. It was an honor because she always had a good smile and always had the charm, the strength, and I know she's going to start crying, so I better stop at a certain point. But Ellie, you will be missed, and thank God I still have you on Facebook.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Bradley, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I just want to say something real quick since everyone else is saying something, but I'm going to keep it short because I will get emotional.
Yes.
Hold on. Let me gather myself. Is for me in the last 7 years that I've been at PCAC, Ellen has been the biggest mentor anyone could ever ask for. She has helped me to grow as a planner and grow within the organization. That without her, I would be totally lost. And I'm going to keep it there because, Ellen and I will continue to talk more so, and I can articulate clearly more what I want to say about Ellen, but I just have to put in my 2 cents that she's absolutely amazing, and I am so indebted to her and thank her for
Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley.
Bradley, you can articulate much better on an articulated bus,
Andrew, I would love to give a round of applause for her. Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Oh, thank you.
I'm the one that wanted to say that.
And I'm sure we'll be seeing Ellen. Ellen is, she loves the topic. She loves the organization. And I'm sure she'll be making contributions in one way or another.
Can I, can,
Both Jason and Matt both have their hands raised also, as long as it's on this topic to start with. Yes?
Jason?
Yes, it's regarding Alan. Alan, I'm gonna miss you. Thank you for teaching me how to speak within the MTA board to always stay on topic. Thank you for being one of those people that contribute with the Now Atlanta ticket. You're gonna be missed by so many people, myself included, and I hope that you enjoy your retirement.
thank you, Jason. That means a lot
Thank you,
to me.
Jason. And we
Stuart, and Bert, and then we'll go to Matt, and then Matt Shotkin, and then Matt Camper. Stuart?
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say, Ellen, it's been a pleasure. You were able to ensure that the people who came before us, we held their feet to the fire, and you asked tough questions, and you did it in such a way that they felt comfortable answering. We'll miss that. And you pursued things for the board, I know for me, and that was very helpful in seeing that our work got done, and you will be sorely missed.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart.
Do I come through? Can you?
You're
hear me?
fine. We
Oh,
see
okay.
you. Yeah.
I
Loud
know
and
me and
clear.
technology is struggling sometimes.
Lisa, who else wanted to speak? I know there were two Matts, but there was someone other than, was it Bert, right?
Just to second all of the nice things that have been said about Ellen. She's been wonderful to work with, and I want to wish her the best in retirement.
Thank you, Bert. This seems like a good time to play Andrew Gold's "Thank You for Being a Friend" song, but we'll call on Matt
Shotkin.
Matt Camper.
Yes, and Bill, I'm not sure if you have your hand raised or if you're deciding, and Marisol does.
Oh, okay.
Bill, you are muted. Bill Guild, you're muted. Okay, you're unmuted.
Am I now unmuted?
Yes,
You
you are
are.
unmuted.
Thank you. Do I have the floor?
You do.
Oh, I just want to add to whatever everyone has said about Ellen. It's been a joy to have her here all these years. We surely will miss her, but I hope we won't miss her altogether, because I hope she'll come see us.
Exactly.
Always.
Very much for everything, Ellen.
Thank you, Bill.
Best of luck, best of everything in the years to come.
Thanks so much.
Marisol wanted to say something, and Sharon, you are the last member. So if you want, before we go to the Mats, if you want to speak after Marisol, that would be.
Before we go to the Mats, I love it.
I like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. Well, I want to thank Ellen as well. I've been here, I don't even know how many years now, but I know she's always been a joy to speak with, and I know that even at the borough president's office, she's brought stuff to our attention. I expect her to continue to do so. And she's worked with projects with us on that as well. So I appreciate all that you've done, and I'm going to miss you. I don't want to get as emotional as Bradley, but I know that it's just been great to have you around. So lots of luck.
Thank you, Marisol.
And Sharon has indeed raised her hand, and I'm unmuting you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I've always admired so much, not only how much Ellen gets done, but her wonderful, quiet demeanor. And she really is the classic example of speaking softly and carrying a big stick. And we're really going to miss her. And I admire her so much, and I thank her so much for everything and wish her well.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks,
And
Sharon.
we will have a party once we can all actually be together. Matt Shotkin, you have patiently raised your virtual hand for quite some time. But
yeah,
okay.
I just wanted to say thanks for everything, Ellen. I'm really going to miss you. And good luck in your retirement, and may you do a lot of leisure activities during your retirement.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
I think that's Matt's way of saying have fun. And Matt Camphor.
Okay, thank you. And first of all, Ellen, I really, on behalf of myself and the entire Pastures United team, we want to thank you so much for everything you have done over so many years for the PCAC, including most of all what comes to the bottom of my heart, the Atlantic ticket. If it wasn't for you and what you did to make the Atlantic ticket the success that it is today, I don't know if we, riders across Southeast Queens and Brooklyn would have the easier commute. It would be a rough time for them to be able to get around Southeast Queens and Brooklyn. If it wasn't for you and the Atlantic ticket, of how it got implemented and you working with the MTA on that, it wouldn't be what it is today. And I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for everything you've done. We are going to deeply miss you. And hopefully we'll see you around at, and hopefully you'll come back and visit us. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Matt.
And Andy Pollock
Yes.
does not want to be.
Yes. So, Ellen, I'm just going to say this honestly. You were one of the first people who I saw at 2 Broadway besides Lisa. So this is also a bittersweet, emotional moment for me, I guess. So it's going to feel very odd when we go back to 2 Broadway sometime soon that you're not going to be with us. So we're all going to miss you. And word of advice, because you are talking to an Eastern Shore resident of Maryland, try to retire somewhere around the beach. Best wishes, Ellen, in retirement.
Thank you so much, Andy. I may take you up on that beach thing. I just want to thank you all. I'm going to try and not ugly cry on here, but I already am. I always describe the TRC and all of you that help the TRC be what it is as a heart center, because of the passion that everybody has on their rides and the goodwill of trying to make that better for every rider. And to go through, Stuart and Marisol and Trudy and Sharon, like I feel like I want to name every one of you. Bill, the Matts, Andy, because Chris, you've all gotten so inside of me in your uniqueness, in your strength. You taught me so much that helped feed me as we talked to the MTA to help them understand different problems and having them change things, and making sure we got heard. So I probably can't turn around. I care so much about the system. I care so much about all of you and what you've brought to my life. So thank you so much. And you might see me, I don't know, like at an MTA board meeting or hanging out in this room here every once in a while. But just thank you. Andrew, your leadership has been so remarkable through the years, and your knowledge and carrying me through. And Lisa, thank you for all that you're doing in getting us on the map so strongly. And Bradley, such a big heart center. I have had so much joy in working with Bradley on all these projects, and Bradley on Freedom Ticket and visualizing it and making it so it was a project everybody could understand. It was just so much fun. Thanks.
Couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ellen, for all you've done. And just to give you an example of what Ellen is talking about and how this is all heartfelt stuff for all of us, you're probably all aware that there are 2 projects underway right now in the subway system that are affecting ridership. There is the track replacement at Parsons Archer and Sutphin Archer on the E line. And of course, there is the Rutgers tube work, which is affecting the E and the F lines. Unfortunately, sometimes the coordination and the message you're putting out isn't always perfect. For instance, and I've pointed this out to Sarah Meyer and Frank Giesecke, and hopefully they are getting this corrected. If you look at on the MTA's own website, on the Parsons, on the Jamaica line of the work there, it gives a track map of the E, and it shows it going to World Trade Center. But unfortunately, after 9:30 at night and all day on weekends, due to the Rutgers job, it isn't going to World Trade Center. It isn't even going down 8th Avenue. It's going down 6th Avenue and ending at Delancey, Essex. They did not have this out on their own official site, so I've mentioned this to them, and hopefully this will get fixed. We want this work. This is all important, urgent work, and while there's the shutdown from 1 to 5 a.m., we should do as much work as humanly possible, but we've got to get the message out where the trains are running. And the E's are going down 6th Avenue, and the F's are going up and down 8th Avenue during those times. And the public has to be told this is what's happening. So anyway, I see our speaker has joined us. Should we take him and do old and new business afterwards? I think
Yes, can we do, I think so. Can we do a quick adopt the agenda, adopt the minutes?
Yes. Let's do an approval of today's agenda. Everybody in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
How about the minutes? Any corrections, additions, or can we have it?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right. All in agreement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so there were several reasons why Chief Delatorre, who's doing a fabulous job, is the person that I thought would be very timely for today's meeting. There are a lot of issues affecting riders. Crime, while not anywhere near record levels, has risen some. While I was talking to the chief, ironically, on the phone, I saw 8 people slip in through a slam gate at 94th and Broadway of the 96th Street station. If that is replicated 200 or 300 times, considering there's 472 stations and thousands of fare control areas, you can just get an idea of how much money the MTA is losing. And unfortunately, most of the people that commit crimes are not paying their fares. So we really need to get a handle on this, on attacks on each other, on random acts of ridiculous violence and cruelty, such as the 14th Street derailment that took place the other day. We need our police, and we need to be able to see them. Many people have said to me, I haven't seen a police officer in ages. So with all of these issues going on, we thought it a great idea to hear from the chief and let us know what they are doing, to let the chief know that we support them and we would like to see more of them. So Chief Delatorre, please. Is the chief there?
I've asked the chief to unmute. He may have stepped away.
Oh.
We have him on the calendar, on the schedule for
1 o'clock, yeah, but I saw him, so I thought I'd take him.
Yep. Can I provide a quick update until he comes back on about the activities that we have been engaged in support of federal funding?
Yeah, please.
Great. So I see that the chief has unmuted himself. So
no, I'm the chief's technical advisor, Detective Raffaelli. the chief is going to be here at 1 o'clock. I just
Okay.
started it earlier just to make sure everything was good with the computer
All right,
and
terrific.
tech-wise.
Terrific.
So if he'll be here at 1,
Okay.
I'm just going to leave this muted until he gets here. Okay.
Great.
Great.
Can everybody hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, I thought he was there and we could start him early, but he's not. So Lisa, why don't you give that report?
Sure. So as you all know, and as Andrew discussed during his chair and speaker report, the hunt for federal funding is the most significant effort that the MTA is undertaking right now, that elected officials are undertaking, and that basically the advocacy community locally and nationally have been engaged with. So we have been working independently, but also with local and national advocates to do outreach to elected officials, to educate them to continue the education on the importance of transit to the communities, to riders, and also to look at it from the economic perspective. Pat Boyd sent a letter last week to suppliers, people with contracts in states going from Kentucky to California, that about the potential losses to their business and the potential unemployment that could be caused if federal funding doesn't come through. There's still hope that a federal funding package will get passed that includes transit before before the end of this year, before the election. In fact, there is a lot of discussion, and the MTA just sent out a statement now asking Congress to reject the latest COVID relief bill, which provides stimulus funding for airlines, but not for transit. And that's a position we have heard from a lot of elected officials, including Senator Schumer. And including the Democratic presidential candidate. There was an event last week that we participated in on Long Island that looked at some of the damage that could be caused. It's called Last Stop Long Island. It was a white paper that was released that would look at the economic damage and the personal damage that could be caused if any of the cuts to the Long Island Railroad come through, including loss of entire lines, loss of half of the trains, the potential elimination of the Greenport line from Ronkonkoma, and had some really good follow through with Bill Lang was there, Eric Alexander, and advocates from not just from the city but from Long Island as well. In 2 weeks, we'll be working with elected officials in Westchester County to get that message out as well. We worked closely with the Rockland County Executive, and with the Rockland County Executive then worked with Dutchess, Orange, Putnam, and Westchester counties, and they together, the 5 of them, penned a letter to the president that talked about the importance of transit and the MTA to their communities. So there's a lot of momentum behind this effort. The one thing that we hear continuously is that it's important for people to educate their elected officials. And if you've got family in other states that may not be as supportive of transit for the MTA, that this would be a good time to ask your family to voice their concern as well. So, it's an ongoing effort. It's a continuous issue. I don't know if Trudy has anything additional she wants to weigh in on some of the efforts that the state is undertaking at the governor's office level and national level.
The only thing that I would add is that they just added a thing to us with taking away with FEMA, which is really the president's doing, or part of the. I think I don't know if FEMA is considered part of EPA, whatever it is, that FEMA taking away the money for the cleaning, where there is now a lawsuit going on at the state, and I think other states have joined in with us, but I know that Tish James and the governor, or Tish James on behalf of the governor, they have started a lawsuit because FEMA can't just do that. But that is the money that is used for the overnight cleanings and keeping, what is it, Chris, who said, sparkly, beautiful cars inside and outside. So that's the only thing. I don't know if you got any update on that, Lisa.
No, thank you for raising that. In fact, I asked the MTA what the loss of the FEMA funds would be. What does that mean? You're not going to be able to clean? Does that mean, that you have to? What's going to get cut? And it's reimbursable funds that they anticipate would stop coming as of last week, and those. So they're going to continue to do the same level of cleaning, and the things that they had anticipated previously being reimbursed for from FEMA, but now they have to find that money somewhere else. So
and it wasn't just the MTA, it was going to be removing FEMA funds from school cleaning, transit cleaning, and PPE.
Yeah, it's a broad brush of pain that is because we're an anarchist city or anarchist jurisdiction. And the governor pointed out that it's not the president's money, it's a process, and it's a I think that the law will probably come down on the right side of this, or the correct side of it, I should say. But it's still going to cause pain for right now. I did want to also just raise something that was brought to our attention yesterday or 2 days ago. We had spoken with Representative Velasquez's office some time ago about legislation that she was proposing, and in fact, which just is dropping this week, which would provide grant funding for accessibility projects up to $5 billion with the potential waiver for with the local match. So that has, does that have any hope of passage? Who knows? It could certainly see the light of day. There is a large transit advocacy, but there is a larger community that advocates for those efforts. And that includes the construction industry in addition to the disability community, because there's been a dearth of work because no municipalities are able to do the construction work that they have been, had been planning, and that means that the contracts are not there. But if that proposal is enacted, if that legislation is enacted, it would mean a lot for being able to move forward some of the projects that are now on hold at the MTA level. I think there were 24 projects that are on hold, on pause right now, because of the hold on the capital projects. So that is, that's part of the work that we're doing. Just wanted to provide an update on some of the.
But one of the things that is not suspended in the capital program is East Side Access. Just yesterday, the board approved some things for the Harold interlocking. So clearly that part is still moving ahead.
Right. There has been some dialogue about whether the opening date could be pushed back. And, the governor has made it clear about when he wants that to move forward. But we, right now, I think it's a very volatile situation that we won't know any outcomes really for quite some time. I see Jason has his hand up, and then Andy Pollack.
Yes, Lisa. Quick question. Are you guys planning to lobby directly in DC? Because I think that writing letters and calling senators' offices, like I've been doing with Mitch McConnell, is not going to get us anywhere. Why don't we create a group from New York and go directly to DC, knock on every senator's offices, and tell them we have this issue. What's your position on it? If it's yes or no.
Right. So Jason, I want to really be very clear that we do not lobby. And
we're not allowed to lobby.
Our role is to educate elected officials. There are a number of local and national advocacy organizations that are registered lobbyists that are not just, thinking of conversations to have and having those conversations, but discussing those steps. and engaging other rider councils as well to get them to call on their elected officials. So there is a strong lobbying component, but it's not something that we are or can be involved in.
If I can just add in that the New York delegation, the House delegation, and our two senators are foursquare behind us, and they are talking. I mean, it really comes down to being a quote-unquote political issue, because we have got so many senators and members of representatives with us, because this not only affects New York, it affects every transit system in the country. And so there are, all the representatives are, I don't want to call it lobbying, but this is what they do. And the governor's office has been, Governor Cuomo's office has literally been leading the fight on all of this, so that we have plenty of voices in Washington, but unfortunately the people that we have to reach, no matter how loud our voices are, they are tone deaf.
Because to be honest with you, truly, I've been calling Mitch McConnell's Washington office, and always a recording comes out. And if we call the Kentucky office of him, they're not going to do anything.
You know something? If you're paying for all these calls, you're just wasting your money. You're not going to. People like him just don't care. And they don't even listen to our elected representatives, their peers.
I will say, I'm sorry, Trudy.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So last week when we were in Long Island, part of the conversation that we were having was to raise awareness to Congressman Lee Zeldin, who spoke at the Republican National Convention, of the doomsday scenario of what could happen in his district if transit funding doesn't come through, and called on him to use his relationship with the president to make that request. It was, it was a very straightforward conversation about, here's the needs, here's what could happen, here are the economic implications, here's the layoffs, here's the job concerns that could happen here. We really need your support. As we like to think of as perhaps a consequence of some of the conversations that happened right the day before that event. There was a letter that he sent, that Lee Zeldin sent out with several of his Republican colleagues to the Senate and congressional leadership, not to the president, calling for an investment in the MTA as an investment in the region. In fact, they even said, if there's maybe if you're not going to vote for a stimulus package, to include that as part of a continuing resolution to keep the government going. Mm-hmm. That was not included as part of the continuing resolution, but at least they went from I don't have a position to here's our position and we recognize the importance. But Trudy points out that it's not it's not about necessarily what's right and what's wrong. It's about what's right and what's left.
Very good. Lisa, could you send me a copy of that Zeldin letter, please?
Yes. And I see that Andrew Kurzweil has his hand up, and then we're...
Well, I had my hand up first, so...
Oh, Andy, yes, I see his virtual hand. I didn't see yours. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So, two things. Quick question. I should have asked Andrew this earlier. This is a, thing for Queens. Is the F still going to have the R179s?
They're not scheduled to be on the F. They're scheduled to be on the A, C, J, and Z.
Okay, so that still impacts Queens. Regarding federal funding, this is just somebody who knows economics a little bit, I guess. My fear, if we do not get this funding, and I think this is going to make a lot of sense here, is let's say they don't budge. And I will go on the record, I have told the MTA board that I have reached out to the feds as well, and they're still not budging. They're all politicizing the RBG thing, but what you're going to see down the line, and this is just my theory if transit gets cut, you are going to see a mass exodus of New York City. We do not, under any circumstances, want that to happen. I have told people many times before this pandemic, our economy was doing very well. We ship at its highest levels ever in the MTA system overall. I'm not talking subways, buses, we're talking commuter rails as well. What the concern here is, if we do not get this funding, and it looks like the way things are ending up right now, the gloomer it looks it's going to happen, I have a very bad feeling that you're going to see a lot of people leave New York for one reason, and that is lack of mass transportation. So my word of advice, and I know I'm sounding a little bit political, try to get some funding. Please fill out the census. I know it's important to say this, but we need all the funding that we can get if we are going to have an accurate population count and have that, represented. Please make sure by this, let me make sure I got the date right, Wednesday the 30th, to fill it out, because we need to be counted and every dollar does matter.
I think you're preaching to the choir, Andy, but thank you.
And Andrew Kurzweil, and then I believe that we go to the chief, or
Yes, then we'll go to
if
the
the chief can unmute and let us know when he's ready, then that's great.
How do I look? Can I see me? I'm doing it right now. Yeah, you're right.
Hi, Chief. We have one guy, and then we're right on you. Thanks so much. Kurzweil, you're on.
Okay. Okay. Just you probably all heard about this already, but October 1st, Transit Center is having a meeting, basically talking about doomsday issues, what's next and everything. And this is from national perspective also, since remember, as much as we want to look at New York, this is also affecting all the other transit
absolutely
groups across the country. And just thought that would be mentioned since we're talking about that in this regard.
Thank you.
Again, that is on the first transit center is having an event on this issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
The chief is
So I think the chief is ready for us.
is on a call.
Oh, okay. You've all been
Now he's ready. Okay.
You've all been sent the chief's bio. I didn't want to take up the time to read it because I know we wanted to hear from the chief, and we're going to have lots of questions. So, Chief Edward Delatorre, please, you're on.
Hello, everybody. It's been a while since I spoke to you. I thought it was about almost a year ago, huh, Andrew?
I think so.
Yeah. So good to be back, even though it's virtual. I always prefer seeing everybody in person, but it's good to be here. Just a few things I wanted to go over with everybody. As to questions I get from Andrew. Andrew and I communicate quite often throughout the week and the months, and a lot of questions come up. So I've felt if I took the time now and I can explain a lot of things, and as usual, when I come to speak to you, I'm actually coming to ask for help. So I'm going to go over some of the things here, and then hopefully we could talk about areas where all of you might be able to pitch in and give us a hand. First of all, you all saw that article in the, was it the Daily News a couple of days ago that talked about crime rates in transit, and that being the reason people are not riding on the trains. I looked at it, I read it. I did tweet something out along with it. As far as I'm concerned, it's not an accurate narrative of what's actually going on. Crime in transit is down dramatically. There are many reasons why we have different crimes in transit. For instance, we had a murder last month, in the month of August, over on 34th and 7th. That was classified a transit crime. But if you look at the details of it, and by the way, we did make an arrest on it. It was two people who were undomiciled that got into an argument up on the sidewalk at the top of the stairway. One pushed the other one on the stairs, and that became a transit crime. So we did make an arrest on it. That's the good news. but everything has to be viewed in the context in which it happens. So we had another case where we received a very ugly crime. A woman walked in and she reported that she had been raped, and that went on our transit stats. However, when she made the report, it turns out that she had actually been raped in an apartment, but she didn't know what apartment it was or where it was. So NYPD guidelines says where you report it is where we account for the crime. So obviously someone being raped in an apartment is not a transit crime, but it was on our stats for the month of August. So this is the context of some of these crimes. In reality, our crime is way down, and it's way down for a lot of different reasons. One of the reasons it's down, well, let me go back to the beginning. We started off the year, the first couple of months of the year, with crime going up and dramatically up. And I've always felt that the reason our crime spiked like that, not just in transit, but throughout the whole city, was because new legislation that was put forward by the state at the time. We have a tremendous problem with recidivists in transit, and we've always had this problem. And when you start taking a judge's ability to hold somebody in jail on bail, especially when it directly impacts our transit riders, that's gonna give way to more crime, and it did early in the year. Then COVID struck, and once COVID struck, we went into a whole new crime trend, if you will. Crime dropped dramatically during COVID because ridership dropped dramatically, and not only that, we were restricting access to the system to essential workers only. So if you're an essential worker, you're probably not a robber. You're probably not a grand larceny recidivist. So during that period, we were able to restrict access to essential workers. That really thinned out those recidivists, those ill-intended people from coming back into the system. So just to give you an example, so prior to COVID, in transit, overall crime was up 35%. Once March 12th hit, at that point, we started a completely opposite trend. And from March 12th on, we're down 42%. Down from up 35 to down 42. Then came the end of line. You know, once we started allowing more people in, we then shut the system down between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. And understanding that a lot of our crime has to do with sleeping passengers, lush workers who ride the system all night, just looking for someone to fall asleep or someone to get too drunk to resist, and then they'll take property from them. So once May 5th came, we then saw an even bigger reduction of 47% overall crime reduction. So from that period on. So there's a lot of reasons our crime is down now. However, as things go back to normal, my concern is if we don't act on these recidivist offenders, let me put it this way, who does robberies? Robbers. Robbers rob, right? And my data shows that it is robbers who rob, you know, based on who we arrest. We're not going to catch every robber, but those that we catch, many of them are recidivists. So if we can get the support of the Riders Alliance here and the MTA board to discuss ways to keep recidivist offenders out, it would be a big help. Currently, we have...
Chief, just so you know, we're the Transit Riders Council, not the Riders Alliance.
Oh, got it. Riders Council. So if we can get the support of the Riders Council, and by the way, Andrew, if there's an alliance, we'll try and get them on board too.
There is one.
So, but if we can get that support to open up a dialogue on this, I think it'd be very helpful. Currently, there is a ban that's in place for recidivist sex offenders and for people who assault transit workers. It's a good start, but we really need to find ways to strengthen it. If somebody assaults an MTA police officer currently, since he's an MTA worker or she's an MTA worker, that person's eligible for a ban by the courts. If they throw an NYPD police officer on the tracks like they did several months ago, I call the DA, not eligible to be banned. That fellow can come right back in the system the next day. These people who are continuously committing these robberies in transit, Many of them are not being held on bail and coming right back into the system to commit it again and again and again. So we need, in my opinion, when I look at the train, if you look at a train and just pop a couple of wings on it, it's very similar to a plane. And none of this stuff would be tolerated on an airplane. When you're in a subway car and those doors close and you enter a tunnel, you're alone. You're isolated in the current environment where there's not many riders. Sometimes you're very much alone in that subway car. There should be special laws. Maybe the New York State Railroad law has to be revisited, but we should have special laws and special protections against people who choose to come into the transit system and act as predators against our riders.
Chief, let me ask you one thing before you move on. When you just mentioned the no bail, is that at the judge's discretion or is that state law?
It's state law, Andrew. The discretion has been taken away from judges.
Yeah.
Prior to this, it was a constant struggle with the NYPD and the district attorney's office to convince a judge that somebody was a danger based on his history. The new state law pretty much mitigates any looking at the history for certain crimes.
Yeah.
In fact, the new state law views robbery. Now understand, robbery third degree, in order to have a grand larceny is somebody takes property off of you and you don't resist and they don't threaten you. In order for that grand larceny to elevate to a robbery, they have to threaten you or in some way use some sort of threat of violence. That becomes a robbery third degree, that alone. That is not bail eligible. That, in the new state law, that is considered a nonviolent crime, even though violence is part of the definition.
Yeah.
So there's some weaknesses, I think, that can be strengthened. But at the end of the day, when judges lose discretion and can no longer look at someone's history to say, what kind of a threat is this person to our transit riders, I think we lose some real advantages there. So,
Thank you. Absolutely right.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hi, Chief Teletori. Thank you for everything you are doing right now. And I've looked at legislatively how certain things, particularly in the realm of sexual assaults, that's a concern of mine right now. I have a 16-year-old daughter who is riding the system, you know, having been impacted myself. And now there's this film out there of what's happening on the platforms, on the stairs, that sort of thing. And I wondered, do you have a legislative department, and I don't even know if that's like within the police department that can that starts to form or recommend the legislation that has to happen for this recidivism, you know, what the penalties are and that sort of thing that allows these people back into the system? Do you have a unit that you turn to make these changes, or at all? That's my big question.
Yes, it's a very good.
Chief, if you don't mind, I'm going to just piggyback onto Ellen's question, because you talked about a special law that was needed just now. So if you could elaborate on that, because if that's who's working with you and Ellen on that, that would be great to know further.
So we do have a legal bureau, and we do have interagency liaisons there, and we have a legislative unit that works with legislators who want to enact laws. They were attempting to be involved in the state laws, but I'm sure we had input in the state law, let me put it that way. But at the end of the day, we're not the final say in how the law comes out. Now, there was some changes to bail reform. It was made better in some ways, but I still think when it comes to transit, our best answer is to say, you know, we have a New York State Railroad law, if we have to go that way. Like this fella who derailed the tracks the other day, I got personally involved with the district attorney in Manhattan, and we pulled out the New York State Railroad law. And we have a law that says it's a Class D felony if you put something on the tracks to interfere with a train. It's written specifically for that reason. So I don't know if the best course of action is to revisit the railroad laws and see if we can come up with something in that body of law that will help our riders. But what I do know is that if we don't find a way to stop the recidivists from coming, it's going to be an ongoing problem.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and there is one other thing. We've done this in public housing during my tenure there. Public housing does have a ban, and it bans people who sell drugs out of apartments, and it bans them for life. There's a process where you can appeal it, and you can, become unbanned, if you will, or get access. And I believe, it's just my opinion, some legal people disagree, but I believe, my legal department believes, and the city law department believes, is that we, New York City Transit, can, absent the criminal justice system, can actually ban offenders and create some burden on them to show us that they're not going to reoffend before we let them back in the system. And I'll give you an example. If you're driving a car and you're accused of driving drunk, your license is suspended immediately. And you have to appeal to the New York State DMV to get either a restricted use license or your license back while this process is going on. And it's a public safety issue. So in my opinion, New York City Transit can ban offenders, certain offenders. We just have to give due process with the ban and make allowances for people who need to get on a subway. If you have to go to work and you're a sex offender, from 9 to 5, you're allowed on a subway. But what really irks me, going to the original question, is that we have these different level sex offenders that are not even allowed near a school because children are in the school. They can't live there, they can't be there. But at the same time, they can sit on a subway car right next to the child on his way to school. So there's something wrong right now, I think, that we can probably get fixed. But I think, again, if we start lobbying together and trying to work on a plan together that comes out of grassroots organizations like yours to say, hey, this is what we want, we might be able to get some help.
No, I think we really want to work with you on this problem. Now, should we be successful, God willing, how would a recidivist be noticed? There's obviously fewer police now due to the ban and overtime. In fact, many people have commented to me, we don't even see cops anymore in the trains. We'd like to see them, but we don't have yet system-wide camera access, I don't believe. So how would these recidivists be noted once they're in the system illegally?
So the simplest way, assuming things go back to normal soon, the simplest way would be if someone jumps a turnstile and we apprehend him, we always do a warrant check and it would tell us he's banned. That's the way it's done in public housing. The other way, because our transit cops are very keen on what's going on in their area where they work. We have our NCOs, we have our steady sectors. They kind of know all the players in their area. Many of them will know they're recidivists. Many of them will. So they'll see them.
It's funny you say that.
All the time.
It's funny you say that because a few years ago when you would see tables with police officers at certain subway entrances, watching people, I used to witness people going down the steps, seeing the desk, the table of police officers, going out, walking 3 or 4 blocks to the next entrance and beating the fare there.
Right.
So if we don't have system-wide cameras, we're really missing a beat in many ways.
Absolutely. System-wide cameras help us in many, many ways. It helps us, obviously, unfortunately, after the fact sometimes, but it does have a preventive value. When we put them into public housing, there was a first-year reduction in crime we saw, where there was prevention. But on the other end, system-wide cameras would make it even more difficult for these offenders to get away. Cameras.
Especially since we can't have a police officer everywhere.
Right.
What is if they come back on this, say, they get kicked out of the system, what's the ramification with each time they're caught? Is that penalty high enough?
Well, if they're banned now, so banning is not new to us. If you go into Macy's and you get caught taking something, they will give you notice. Whether they have you arrested or not, they will give you notice that you're not allowed to come back. From that point on, you're banned. If you enter Macy's for any reason in the future, you're going to get arrested for trespass at a minimum.
And
So
then
it's the
in
same
this,
concept. It's trespass.
It's
Now,
trespassing, yeah.
and do
district-
penalties increase with each trespass that you do?
No, they won't increase, but what'll happen, I believe, is the district attorney will present that to the judge and say, look, this person was arrested for robbing somebody in transit. He was banned and he's come back 3 times. So I think after a while, a judge will look at it and say, you know what, maybe it's time you cool your heels and spend a couple of days, in a cell or something like that. So we see that over time where judges, will use their discretion appropriately for somebody who continues to come back over and over.
And for the sexual assaults done in the system, one thing is some things are not categorized as a sexual assault. Masturbation doesn't seem, that's a public lewdness, I think. If somebody is caught doing that and then they're caught again in this system, what are the penalties for something like that?
One of those ones. I think public's list of sex crimes. Now he wouldn't be a sex offender, but it's still a sex crime as far as we're concerned. So
What are the
that's
penalties?
the same person that should be, well, it's a misdemeanor. So theoretically up to a year in jail. What the good news with sex crimes, especially in Manhattan, where we have, many of them, is they generally hold the defendant to the charge. In many cases, you charge with a misdemeanor, they'll let you plead to a violation or something lesser. But with sex crimes, the district attorneys do a very good job at holding them to the charge. But again, with the new banning law, it's not you commit a sex crime and you're banned. It's you commit a sex crime for the second time, you go through the legal process it could take a year and a half, and you get convicted, and then you can be banned as part of the conviction.
Wow.
So it's a completely different threshold. Like I say, it's a really good start because we've never had any kind of banning conceptually in transit. But what I'm looking for is not a criminal court ban. I'm looking for a civil ban. I'm looking for transit to simply say, you're not welcome here until you prove you are no longer a threat to our riders. And that could be you're found innocent and bring it back. You'll go before a panel and they'll just take a look. Well, I got counseling. I don't do that. Whatever it is, you show us that you're not a threat to our riders, and then we'll let you back in. Or if you have to work, well, then that's fine. If you have a job, then we'll let you in the system, from 9 to 5 or whatever hours you need to travel to go to and from work, but not in the middle of the night when you have a history of molesting people.
Chief, has anybody been banned yet? Or has anybody come close?
Nobody. As far as I know, there have been no bans.
And it's only as good as enforcement, obviously.
Right, but there's still nobody banned. Once somebody's banned, we have to now link to the courts to find that out and then get it out to all of our cops and put it into a system. But
Chief, didn't you tell me that the guy who tried to rape the woman at Lexington Avenue, 63rd Street, had something like 14 priors on his record?
Yes. It's not unusual to find.
And he got a desk appearance ticket?
No, he was kept. He was in custody. Yeah. He's in custody.
No, but previously he just got a desk appearance.
He was arrested just a couple of weeks earlier, right? Yeah. And he got a desk appearance ticket for that.
Unbelievable.
But these desk appearance tickets, prior to the new laws, they were discretionary. The NYPD created the desk appearance ticket to basically thin out the amount of people that had to go see a judge right away. And people that, we had a criteria if you were, if you had roots in the community, if, you lived in New York, things like that. And if you didn't have a warrant, things like that. And we would say, okay, you're eligible for a desk appearance ticket because the level of the crime could only be a misdemeanor, by the way. It could never be a felony. So now the laws have basically taken that administrative policy and created state law out of it. And every police department in the state now has to abide by those regulations. And the discretion is no longer there. So.
I think Chris has a question for you.
Chris has a question and Andy Pollack has his hand up.
Yeah, I'll wait after Chris.
Yeah, Chief, this is Chris Grive, and forgive me if my camera's off because I'm also in another meeting at the same time, and I'm putting my volume up. The concern
Put
is...
the volume down some, if you would, please.
Andrew? I
That's
can't,
better.
Andrew, I have not moved a muscle. So let me just get to my thought because I'm doing 2 meetings today. The chief, there has been some concern, and I want to thank your Transit 30 that did catch him, but there's still continuing issues with passengers, and I will say yes, even buses that are not wearing face masks. And I want to know is what is your plan going to be do with the train ones with people or more the homeless who don't wear face masks, and some do, some don't. We do have some issues that, yes, the cleaners do clean the station up the best they can do, but then the homeless goes back there. Is there any plans or you guys are going to be doing anything in the New York City?
Okay, well, let me start off by, in case, some people didn't know this, we got hit by that defunding, and our homeless outreach unit no longer exists. So we lost, over 90 cops who did homeless outreach. Our officers now will respond to any violation, whether the person is homeless or not, and act on the merits of the violation itself. When it comes to masks, we encourage people to wear them. We give them a mask. And if they don't want to put it on, we will encourage them to leave the station. But we're trying to take a very soft approach to masks just to get people to comply as best we can. The cop always has discretion to write a summons, but once we engage somebody in a summons, into that enforcement aspect, there's always the risk that it's going to become close contact and potentially an arrest, as you saw a few months back. The young lady was being begged by a sergeant and a cop, begged, and I heard the audio. They were begging her to put a mask on. She had a child. They begged her not to do it in front of the child, and that video turned out to, to look really bad publicly because somebody else narrated what was going on. It wasn't true, but somebody else narrated. So we have all these passengers who will capture video and then create their own narrative, unfortunately. But we have to strike a delicate balance. We have to social distance. We have to be careful with close contact. Certainly, any of the serious crimes that go on there, the cops are making great arrests and they're fully engaged.
Stuart has his hand up.
Yeah, Stuart.
Hi, Chief, a quick question. If 24-hour service ever resumes, would that task force be coming back?
The task force, you're talking about the anti-terrorist unit?
The homeless.
Right now, the homeless outreach unit has been defunded.
Okay, it's defunded. Okay.
It no longer exists.
All right. And do we have any officers working in plain clothes, or that's totally?
All right. So topside in the precincts and in housing, they did away with their anti-crime.
Right.
I did not.
Okay.
So there were many, many, many officers working in plain clothes throughout the transit system, 24 hours a day. That's how we catch our sex offenders. That's how we make most of our arrests. These people could be sitting right next to you. You'll never know it until somebody does something foolish. And then all of a sudden, a couple of cops come out of nowhere. And I got to tell you, my plainclothes officers, you'll see sometimes I'll put them out on Twitter, but my plainclothes officers, many of them, I could put them on a train with 20 or 30 other people, and I would dare you to try to figure out which one's a cop. They look like college kids. I mean, they really dress like undercover cops.
Okay.
They're very hard.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Andy Pollock from Passengers United.
Hey, Andy.
Hello, Chief. Welcome back. I'm very glad to see you. Okay, 2 things. Number one, I want to talk about homeless, actually. I think I've brought this up many times in the past regarding our issues with Transit District 20. I told you about the homeless person who has been panhandling since January of 2019 at the 78th Drive entrance to Kew Garden Turnpike on the E and the F. So a quick question would be, let's say same individual keeps panhandling for a consistent period of time. Would they get a trespassing warrant issued, or what would happen in that case?
No, that's a great question, but your thinking is like-minded with what I spoke about earlier. Somebody who creates a nuisance on transit property It's up to the landlord. It's up to transit to say, you know what? We don't want you on the property until you stop engaging in that behavior. So that goes to what we talked about, that civil notice of trespass, that civil notice that says you're not allowed back until you conform with the proper behavior. Now, I'm not suggesting a panhandler, ordinarily should be banned from transit. I'm looking more towards the real violent offenders. However, that's not to say that anybody on a lower level that continues to wreak havoc in our system, couldn't be addressed the same way. But that's really up to the landlord. Landlord's got to tell the NYPD, who do you want to be not allowed into the system? Same as Macy's. If you go into Macy's and you're banned and you come back, Macy's doesn't arrest you. They call us and say, this guy was banned. Here's the notice we served him with a year ago. Here he is again. Now we want him arrested. Then we arrest based on their complaint.
All right. And second point I want to bring up is regarding the face mask issue. Some of you story on Channel 7 ago where individuals were confronting a person at 14th Street, Union Square, not wearing their face mask. And I remembered way back in March, President Sarah Feinberg mentioned that the best scenario, if you do see somebody not wearing their mask, is to not confront them, which is the right thing to do, because I've been advising people, bottom line, if you see people without their mask on, the best thing that you can do in that situation is to at least maintain the social distancing and at least keep 6 feet away from them, because you don't know if that individual is going to be violent, like what happened at Union Square a couple weeks ago.
You're absolutely right. You're right. Passengers need to be very careful how they speak to other passengers. Unfortunately,
right.
The overwhelming majority of our passengers are wonderful people who care and help in one way or another when something happens. But there's always going to be somebody in there. Could be somebody who had a bad day or just somebody who's not like-minded or stable. And, if you confront them and embarrass them, you may draw a reaction out of them. I agree.
Exactly. That's the best word of advice. Just maintain the social distance.
Yep. We're actually working with transit workers now. And we're actually going out to visit them in the different points of employment where they gather up. And we're speaking to them and giving them some of our training on de-escalation so that they themselves do not wind up becoming the victim of assaults and dealing with people over a mask or something else.
Because most likely I'll see it happen when I return back to the system next year. So
next year.
Andy, we have a question. Bert has a question. Thanks. And
Yeah.
Marisol, I think it was raising her hand as well. So Bert, then Marisol, and then we have Jason, and then Matt.
Chief, you started off with some horrendous crimes being misrepresented and not accounted for accurately. Is there any way to get that changed so that the statistics are at least correct?
It's the way the NYPD does it, and I've brought my concerns out there. The bottom line is, for the murder, the stairway is our jurisdiction. No, the top of the stairs is actually, I saw the video. He pushed him from the top of the stairs onto the stairs. That is our jurisdiction, but clearly the rape made no sense. After a while, after our investigators dug deep into it, we were able to establish where it happened. And that stat, although it appeared for August, is no longer on our stats. That was moved and put into the precinct where it belonged. But we also have crimes that get reported. Again, we have to have a way of maintaining integrity. Otherwise, one precinct might try to give it to another precinct, right? So we also have people who are sitting in a subway car who get a notice on their cell phone that someone stole their identity. That's a grand larceny. And guess what? That now happened in transit because it's point of notification. Unless you know where it actually happened, it goes to where you're notified. So we also capture a few of those every year. It's just one of the slight, issues with our system. Now, the crime has to exist somewhere, and we don't want precincts going back and forth with it. So where it's reported or where you live, it's either where you live or where you first find out it happened, that type of a crime would go.
So Marisol has a question. But so if somebody reports a sexual assault when they get home, and it's even though it happened on the subway and they report it at their local precinct, does it then get assigned to the precinct even though it happened on the subway?
No, that gets to the subway. If you know where it happened, that's where the report goes. But unfortunately, with identity theft, no one knows where that happens. It happens somewhere in cyberspace. And you find out while you're in the subway, which happens frequently. And that's where the report gets taken.
Thank you. Marisol.
Hi, Chief. How are you? I know you mentioned the reduction in the budget. Or did you see a reduction in the number of officers assigned to you in transit?
Yeah, so I'll call it patrol strength. It's a little bit complicated. But our patrol strength has seen a reduction, yes. We've lost hundreds of overtime tours. So where officers might have been seen performing different functions on overtime, those tours are gone. And at the same time, we are losing officers to retirement as well. And at this point, we're not seeing any new officers coming on the job or getting trained to replace them. So we are. But in spite of that, I just got to tell you that the cops are working really hard and crime is still incredibly low. I mean, I'm dealing with crime numbers coming in at like 2, 3, or 4 a day when we used to get 5, 6, 7. So it's still very, very low compared to what it was. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of there is no single answer that brings crime down. It's always a bunch of different things that helps bring it down, and it could be a bunch of different things that also make it go up. So
No, I appreciate what you're doing. I know we've known each other for quite some time in the different realms of NYPD, so I appreciate everything you're trying to do for transit. And I definitely can sympathize with the identity theft, because the identity theft could happen in a different state, but if it's reported in New York City, then that's where it goes. So I appreciate everything you're trying to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Marisol.
Jason has patiently had his hand up, and then Matt Chopkin.
Oh, Jason.
Hi, Chief. How you feeling?
Hi, Jay. How are you?
I'm fine. You?
Good, good. How you doing?
I'm doing very good. My concern, Chief, is regarding the transit employee that was assaulted at Hoyt Skimmerhorn, where happens to be Transit District 30. Why wasn't anybody from that transit district making a tour within the station at the time that the transit employee was assaulted?
Yeah. I'm sorry. So you're asking why?
Why nobody from the precinct was on patrol, I guess.
I'm going to repeat.
They're right there.
Right.
When the subway employee was assaulted at Hoyt
Jason,
Skimmerhorn.
I got it now. I got it.
He's got it, Jason.
The officers were there. They pulled him off the tracks. They were the first ones on him, and they pulled him off the tracks. They stopped the incoming train. I don't think that was mentioned in the story that went out.
It was not.
No, the officers were there. They weren't far away. They heard him scream. As the perpetrator ran away, the officers ran to him. One of them stopped the train, and the other one jumped down and pulled him up and got him off the tracks. So, these train stations are very large. And even though we have cops often in a station, it doesn't mean that the people going through that station are going to see them. But they were there, and they did make the rescue on him, and we picked up that guy, I think, within 2 days.
And the cameras were
The cameras were a big help. We actually got a picture of him, and we showed, I can't say who exactly, but it was a member of another city agency that looked at him and recognized him, and then our guys actually made the grab.
And actually, Chief, I've been running the subway here and there, not like before, but I saw, I think it was Monday of last week, 4 people without masks. And I was on the A train from Brooklyn to Manhattan I saw two ladies without masks. I got off at 14th Street, and what I did was I reported it to the conductor. And then when I was on the N train coming back home, I saw two additional people without masks. My question to you, Chief, and I know that you appreciate me a lot, is the move that the MTA did with the fine of $50, in your opinion, is too low? Is it all right, or it could be higher?
You know, Jay, I think it's a good start. I think anything that gives us a little more authority to encourage people to comply helps. I don't know that if it's 100 or 50 would actually make a difference. But I think just having that support and the people out there, you know, I'm a big believer that most people do what's right. And if you create a law that says that's wrong, you're going to gain an overwhelming amount of compliance. And then you're always going to have a handful of people that maybe aren't going to comply or go along with the new laws. But I think, and I did ask the MTA very early on to put up signage to as much as possible throughout the system to encourage people to do what's right. So if my officers do wind up in a confrontation, it's a lot better when we can say, hey, it's the rule, and point to a sign than them not understanding what the rule is or knowing what it is. So anything the MTA does to give us more tools to use, if you will, I welcome.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your advice like always.
Thanks, Jay. Good seeing you, by the way.
Same here.
I think you probably, hopefully you've got time for one more question. Matt Shutkin has had his hand up for a few minutes. You can probably, it's probably getting numb. And then we'll thank you. Matt, you've got the floor.
Chief, Chief, I'm just interested in the crimes in transit article in the Daily News. I'd like a copy of it, please.
Oh, the article? Yeah,
Yes.
we could get you a copy of it. It doesn't speak to the crimes. It has a, it basically claims that ridership is down 75%, but it's actually down about 69%. And crime is only down 46%. Therefore, crime should be down 75% or something like that. It's really, it's an uninformed, article, if you will. It's a reporter who took sources that were not police sources and put something together in an article. It's not unusual for us to see this. Like in other words, if one rider steps off a subway, there should be one less crime. No, crime does sometimes have a correlation. Certain crimes will have a correlation to ridership, but many other crimes have a more direct correlation to the criminals that enter the system. So if 10 criminals enter the system, whether it's 1.7 million or 5.6 million, they're looking for 10 victims. Which is why we go back to, we have to come up with something to deal with recidivism. It'll be a big help.
So I just put the link to the article in the chat, Matt, if you wanted that. I saw that Ellen had her hand raised. I know that Andrew had his hand raised, and then maybe we'll spring you.
Okay.
Steve, I really want to thank you so much, and how lucky we are to have you as our chief. We've been through several, but to have you in place during this time that's so incredibly complicated, it means so much. I'm wondering if, because one of the things that I've struggled with over the years is my lack of understanding of the technical language, larceny, misdemeanor, and those things, versus the things that, the words that I'm familiar with, which is the robbery, sexual assault, and those sorts of things. And thinking, have you thought about, even in the committee books, translating some of this stuff that's really rider, the terms that riders understand, to help understand what's happening on the system would be really helpful for advocates like us to do a bit more translation.
Well, it's a good idea because how many times have you heard somebody say, my house was robbed? My house was robbed. There's
Right.
no such thing. You can't rob a house.
Right.
You burglarize a house, you could rob a person, right? But you're right. You're absolutely right. The language can be a little complicated. Probably too complicated to try to explain in a committee book, but I'm available anytime you want to talk about it. Now, or any of you. I mean, I'm doing this over 40 years, and I often get asked why, and I can tell you, it's you, all of you. You're a big part of the reason why. The good people that ride the system and care and support us out there and appreciate what we do. You're the reason why I'm not retired. I'll get 2 pensions when I finally do, right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. A couple of things. So when your manpower was reduced due to budget cuts, did they say anything about camera access to make up for it? I mean, what percentage of the system of the fare control areas would you say has camera access now?
What do you think, Ray? How much?
I don't want to ballpark it.
You know what? That's really a transit question. I know
All
that
right, I'll ask.
we've been working. I have prior to COVID, we had a working group with them, and we were prioritizing the stations based on crime and need, where they're putting cameras in. So I know at that point, we still had a long way to go. I don't know, since then, we haven't really met. So I don't know how far along they've gotten since then. I suspect not very far because of COVID.
Yeah, I suspect you're right.
We had a very long way to go.
One other thing, I've been riding a lot of SBS buses recently for one reason or another, in addition to the subways, and I have not seen the Eagle team in over a year. Do they exist still? Where are they?
They do. They're out there, the Eagle team. They've helped with the underlying closures. They've helped with the, this guy was busting windows on a 7 line.
Oh.
So we set up a task force for that. The Eagle team has been helping us with that. So they're definitely out there. And I'm not being recorded, correct? Because I'm going to let you know another. Okay?
You are.
Okay, but I'm not being
Oh,
recorded.
then I see the little REC in the corner. Yes, it's recorded. You can tell us later.
Okay.
You can tell us later.
Well, all I could say is the NYPD is helping out with the buses.
Okay.
More than.
You have not caught the perpetrator of us who was smashing the 7-line windows, correct?
Not yet. No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, let me thank you so much for all you do and your team. We really appreciate having you on the job. We will talk to you about moving forward in various areas offline. And stay safe, you and all your people, please.
Thank you so much.
Thank all of you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
I think we could move to old and new business now. So who has any item of old business? Not seeing any. Lisa, do you see anything? Because maybe it's on your screen and not mine.
No, I don't see anything of old business. I do know that Christopher would like to, and I agree, recognize and thank everybody who participated in the task force activities and hope, I guess it's old business because it happened last week.
That is old business.
Right, but we'll continue to share that information and look forward to doing it again. It's really a lot of fun, and people are so appreciative when you get out there and give them masks.
Absolutely. Then let's move to new business. Anybody?
Sharon.
Sharon.
Hold on. Sharon, you're unmuted.
Okay. I'm concerned about notification of the changes at Sutphen Archer for people who count on the air train. I mean, if you get on at 53rd Street, do you have a way of knowing that you aren't going to be able to get the connection when you get to the other end?
Sharon,
who is in charge of that?
I've noticed on E-trains, they now have the destination of Jamaica Van Wyck showing when the train is only going that far.
Okay.
And there
well,
is shuttle bus service. You also, and this is not really widely publicized, it should be, you can actually ride the Long Island Railroad train to Jamaica with a
yeah,
Metro
I
card.
know, but it's a pain in the neck.
Yes, Johnson D. Souza has brought that up, Andrew.
What?
But Sharon, as far as your first question, trains that aren't going the whole route should have the display saying Jamaica Van Wyck.
Yeah, but even so, if you aren't a regular rider, you don't realize. I mean, it needs to tell you this is not going to connect you directly to the air train. And
All right,
when
I
you
can speak
and
to
at the
transit.
airport, yeah.
They should have live conductors coming on saying, this E-train is only going as far as so-and-so. There will be a shuttle bus to take you from there to I will check on that for you, Sharon.
Okay, because it wasn't very clear a week or two ago when I came in.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will definitely get back to you.
Jason has his hand up, and Matt, and then Andy, and then Matt Shotkin. Unless there are other,
yes.
unless there are other members who have questions.
Follow up with Sharon's question. My understanding is it could be confusing for tourists that depends on the air train, but doesn't realize that the Long Island Railroad could get from Penn Station to Jamaica in 20 minutes.
I was going to say 19, but very close.
Yeah, because I'm going to be out of town between October 3rd and 7th, but I'm not going to take the railroad from Brooklyn because obviously it's not being cross-honored, and I'm not going to go all the way to Penn Station then to go back to Queens. But I've been receiving reports that the shuttle buses are packed, and even on the weekends, the shuttle buses are unreliable. Plus, you have like a bunch of deals running at the same time. And being on Jamaica on the weekends is not a good idea. It's not a good thing because at the same time, you're not having service between Jamaica and Hicksville for 5 more weekends.
Right. Jason, you realize that the J and Z are still serving Sutphin Archer and Parsons Archer, right?
Yes, we totally understand that, Andrew. But for tourists that is staying in a hotel in Midtown,
Then while those are closed, the Long Island Railroad is your fastest trip to the air train, for sure. But how would a tourist know that the Metro card is to be honored on the railroad? You'd have to go on the MTA's website because there really isn't signage to tell you.
And the website doesn't tell you.
We'll get into that.
Even they claim that they'll give us great information in their town hall, but we stay with more questions than answers.
Yeah, I'll speak to Sarah Meyer about the messaging.
And even Andrew, what if there's problems along Queens Boulevard? Because last week we had 4 GOs at the same time. What if there's an issue like a signal or a switch? It's going to be a meltdown on Queens Boulevard.
It's the second busiest line.
Yep. And by the way, I'll be testifying tonight on the FAA hearing regarding the Air Train LaGuardia.
Oh.
And this morning, the Regional Plan Association posted on the Twitter page that they fully support the project.
Who supports it?
The Regional Plan Association.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, for God's sake.
It's a really asinine route, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh. Don't get Andrew started.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, I know. And
Christopher
by the way, new business, I was last night at Coney Island and I saw the Omni readers installed, but not active yet.
Yeah, a lot of the turnstiles have the plate there, which shows you the reader is coming, but it's not in yet.
Christopher has his hand up, and then I see Matt, and then we are 8 minutes away from our designated ending time.
Yes.
My turn, Jay. My turn, Lisa. Yeah. Andrew, one thing I just one thing I'm going to show, but I can't because I'm actually on another video at the same time. But I have to say, doing the volunteering, giving out the face masks, I have to say it was fun to do it, and I hope that we hope we can still continue. One thing I did find out, and this is also for Lisa as well, that they are also been doing Penn Station, because it seems they set up district like Times Square will be your main zone. You can split them between Grand Central, Penn Station, or travel on the trains, because I did travel one on the 7 line up to 74th Street, and I have to say it was fun with the MTA police. Oh, and by the way, I forgot his name. The sergeant says hello to all three of you guys. That's Ellie, Lisa, and Andrew. And Andrew, he says to behave. That's I'm just a messenger.
Yes.
But I just want to say that they also do appreciate that everyone to just be on the alert with any other times. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. I see Matt Shotkin has his hand up, and then, but Stuart's got it. Stuart, you're next.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. A question for you and for Andrew. Has anybody gotten any feedback about the vending machines that have PPE, whether they're being used at all, or are people ignoring them? Just curious.
I haven't seen any usage numbers of them. I know that there was some initial concern about the prices that were being charged, but that from what I understand, there was a review of those prices, and they were found to be within reason. But but I don't know. I mean, I think they're really cool, and if there's a free mask. But if they actually have hand sanitizer and you can't find it anywhere else, I would totally go there.
Right, I'm just curious if people are taking advantage of it.
I think more are going to the booths and requesting the free masks rather than using the machines. I haven't heard any numbers yet, Stuart.
But not every station has a booth, and
No.
they're only available where there are booths.
Well,
but
every station has a booth, but not every station has masks at booths.
You have certain, if there's 4 entrances at a station, one of them may have a booth, but not on the other side, and that doesn't mean that you're going to cross. So there would seem to be more of an option and opportunity for distributing those masks. But I've certainly seen them on the Long Island Railroad, and I've seen them at Metro North stations, and I've seen a lot of vendors around subway stations who will be more than happy to relieve you of your funds and sell you masks. You're muted, Stuart, but we could get those numbers.
No, one follow-up question: How would a writer know that a booth might have masks or not? I haven't seen signage at booths saying that they have masks or ask here for a mask. I only see the sign saying we are not doing the cash transactions. That orange or red sign.
So some of them have it, some of them don't. Some of them will,
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah, when I go, it's not every station has the same level of the active screens. So if a paper sign is up and it's taken down, as I see at my stations all the time, and when I go Queensbound on the 7 train, there's no booth on either of the entrances, but you don't necessarily know that you have to go to the booth across the way to get a free mask. It's messaging could be better.
Okay, thank you.
In my opinion. We've got Andy Pollock and Matt Shotkin, and we've got 3 minutes.
All right, so let's stay on topic with this Jamaica. I have had close conversations with 2 of our members from Passengers United. First, our president and COO, Jonathan D. Souza, and our other member from Jamaica, Andy Quinto. Regarding Andy Quinto, he took the Long Island Railroad from Hollis this past weekend. and they did let him go for free, of course. They cross on. He did go on Jamaica terminal, waiting for a shuttle bus, and then in the overnight hours, Charlton was on Jamaica Avenue, same location. Charlton had reached out to me saying the truth was that, number one, they were not telling people that the Long Island Railroad was in fact cross-honoring, and at number two, there were only 3 shuttle buses running between Jamaica Van Wyck and Jamaica Center.
And somebody let somebody ride the railroad from Hollis to Jamaica, even though that's beyond the subway territory?
I think. I'm not that sure. I'm not too sure if this was correct. I'm not completely 100% correct.
Because Hollis is further east than any of the subway lines are.
Can I clarify, actually? Hollis is actually on the list of the cross-honoring options, according to the website. So
That's bizarre. The subway doesn't go to Hollis, so why would it be on the list? I don't get that. But whatever.
But it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Well, I just wish there'd be more buses the next couple of weekends is what I'm trying to say. Thank you, Matt, for clarifying, by the way.
And then we've got Matt Shotkin with his hand raised with 1 minute left in our meeting. Matt?
Lisa, what I have to say is brief. I rode Metro North 4 months ago and still saw the old cars, and I'm very happy that the Metro North has new plush orange and red seats.
All right. Well, thank you for that observation. And I thank everybody for participating today. I think we had a very interesting meeting. Let me reiterate, we all wish Ellen the very best, and we hope to see her as a visitor.
One more round of applause.
One more round of applause.
Yes, and another thank you. And thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Thanks,
See you next month, guys.
Bye.
And remember, fill out the census.
Yes.